Welcome to this video. My name is Bronte Spicer, and today we're going to talk about emotional availability. So when you are emotionally available, you are really essentially holding the space for your children to find themselves and to be connected to themselves and to help them meet their own needs, and so they can see the gifts and the talents and the strengths, and they can see their own capacity in their lives to be able to live the life that they want. Being emotionally available for your children means it requires you to process all of the thoughts and feelings that are coming up for you, so then you can hold the space for your child and meet them exactly where they're at. So I wrote a book called It's Okay to Cry, and it has a chapter in there called Holding Space, and it could really help you learn more about how you can support your child from that compassionate place, rather than getting into arguments or really having trouble with behaviour within your family unit as well. So we really want to move out of this space of protection and move into a place of connection, where we see our children on the same level as us, where we're not using a power over strategy, or we're not using consequences or rewards as a way to manage behaviours, and we're really looking to see what's behind the behaviour. And perhaps there's school refusal, or perhaps there's refusing to cooperate in the home. And so this video is really going to show you how you can actually approach your children and their needs to support them, so they are happier within themselves, and then they're more cooperative in the family unit. And we do that through processing our own emotions and our own thoughts, so then we can support them to have their needs met. So I do recommend you to read Holding Space chapter 8 from It's Okay to Cry, and I'll leave the link for you, but it's at brontespicer.com/book/. I'm just going to read a piece from this chapter, and it's about holding space for others. If you know someone who's struggling, so it could be your child, holding space can be the most compassionate act and a lifeline for them. It's like holding a safe space for someone to be loved, appreciated, cared for, and supported. In this space, the person is welcome as they are. Holding space is like holding the person in a beautiful, warm, and safe cocoon where they can simply be themselves. You can imagine that you have your child and you're holding space for your child, and you have two massive imaginary arms around your child you are holding space for, holding the energy or space around their body. These two arms hold them with love in a way that they can relax. So you're really helping your child to know that they're in a safe space with you, where they can be who they are without trying to pretend or apply any masks or an inauthentic persona to get approval from you. Really what we're aiming to do here is to build an authentic relationship between you and your child, where you can both be yourselves and you can both have your needs met and you can both feel safe. And what happens is the protective behaviours start to relax and soften and fall away, and then there's a sense of safety and connection between you and your child. And really your job as the parent is to process your own thoughts and feelings, self-regulate your nervous system, and have your needs met. So then you are overflowing, you're full, your cup is full, you're energized, you have the patience to listen and to to have that patience and time and energy to spend with your child as they process their own thoughts and emotions. In this space, they don't have to change any part of themselves. They are accepted and loved just the way they are. And if you think about it as when you were a child, you just wanted to be accepted. You just wanted to be loved. You just wanted to be heard. You just wanted to be received as you were. Essentially, we all just want to be loved as we are without trying to change ourselves and be something that we're not. We really just want the permission to know that it's okay to be ourselves. So we want to process all of the thoughts and emotions that get in the way or are in our experience that is stopping us from being in that place of connection and openness and relaxation, where we can actually listen, hear, and love our children with everything that's arising for them. So when you hold space, you're offering protection and holding safe boundaries for that person to show up as they are. You create a compassionate space for that person to express what's happening for them without your judgment. Gradually, they feel safe enough to take off their protective masks and be authentically themselves. They don't have to hide their emotions. Crying is welcome. Anger is welcome. You compassionately offer stillness and listen as they share, cry, yell, scream, sob, overtalk, talk rationally, talk irrationally, and everything else in between. You are there for them. So yesterday I had an experience with my son, and he was expressing, he actually got really angry, and my job was to allow him to that space to express his anger in a safe way that wasn't directed at his sisters or me, or it wasn't putting anyone in harm's way. And part of that experience, he was venting and sharing that he felt stupid, like a fool, and because he'd made a mistake with the drawing that he was doing. Now, I could have stepped in and said, "You're not stupid, you're not a fool," but actually he just needed that space to, if I did that, I would be severing his expression. He just wanted to be heard. He just wanted to let that out. That was the way that he was expressing himself. And yes, of course, at another time, I can explain to him that from a logical perspective or a cognitive perspective, that we can look, that we have a negative sense of self sometimes and we have a positive sense of self sometimes, and it's really normal and human for all people to have these thoughts like I'm stupid and I'm a fool. And then I can also explain that all humans make mistakes, and mistakes are good because it means that we're learning. But in that moment, what was really most important for him was to have that space to just let it out, just to vent and just express it. And children are really good at this. They're in the present moment and they have that energy in the body, and they're looking for a way to expel it. And what we want to do is move away from repressing our emotions and telling our children to stop crying or to stop getting angry, because that emotional memory will be stored for later on and build up down the track, as we probably have all experienced ourselves. We've experienced the repercussions of emotional build-up in our bodies through overwhelm, addictions, or depression, or anxiety, or repressed trauma. So this is different. This is parenting in a different way, where we're actually allowing all emotions to be here, and we're finding safe ways to express that energy in our children's bodies, so that can be released, and so they're not carrying it into the future. So holding space for your child will look like something like really meeting your child where they're at and allowing them to be just as they are, and allowing emotions to be there, allowing movement, body movement, sound, and screaming, yelling, whatever it needs to be. And so that generally tends to bring up our own stuff. So we might get triggered or feel activated within our own nervous systems when we hear our children crying or screaming or getting angry. Or maybe we just can't handle. I remember one time my son was banging his head like, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. And for me, that was really painful to watch, because I don't want him to feel like he's stupid. I don't want to watch him be in such mental pain like that. And so my job has been to process my own thoughts and feelings about that using the Killer Bee inquiries. So I didn't need to shut that expression down, and so I could just hold him and allow him to express himself just as he needed to in that moment. And so rather than finding advice or a solution, which is all very cognitive, and it can be driven from our own deficiency stories, like a kid has a problem, I need to fix this. You know, the fact that my kid has a problem, that means that I'm failing as a parent, or I'm a bad parent. So that essentially is driven from that core deficiency story, I'm bad or I'm failing. So what happens is, when we process our own thoughts and feelings, when we let go of these strongly identified deficiency stories, then we relax into how our children are expressing themselves, and then we can just meet them where they're at and provide that safe space for them to express themselves. And when they express themselves, 10 minutes later, generally, for younger children, that is, they've moved on. It's like, that's done, and now let's go play. So that's what it looks like to hold space for others. So let's talk about holding space for yourself. So we've talked a little bit about this. What your job is to do is to hold space for yourself. In order to hold space for yourself, that will include practicing KI, so you're processing your thoughts and feelings, you're clearing and resolving your own trauma, so you're not carrying that in your body and in your nervous system. You're not activated as much by what other people are doing. You're noticing what kind of nervous system states your body is moving into. So the more that you put your attention on your body, you'll be noticing the changing sensations in your body that might be lifting you out of that rest digest state and moving you more into that fight flight response. Like, you might feel a tightness in your chest, or you might just feel heat through your shoulders and your face. So just being mindful, putting your direct attention on the sensations in your body could just be enough to self-regulate, to regulate your nervous system, so you don't blow up, so you don't get angry, or you know, project your own anger onto your children. Now, I want to say too that we're not perfect. You know, I yell at my kids sometimes. This is a work in progress. I'm working through my own stuff here of learning how to regulate my own nervous system and just be human in the process, and learn how to be emotionally available so I can hold the space for my children. For you to hold space for yourself, first of all, you need to be energized. You need to have had enough sleep. You need to be, you know, eating well, or eating the foods that are going to nourish you and energize you. If you're tired, exasperated, overworking, so busy, then you're not going to have much energy left to be able to hold the space for a child who's throwing a tantrum, or getting angry at you, or slamming doors, or refusing to do anything that you're asking to do in the family home. So it's almost like you want to prepare your body, prepare your energy levels, so you're at your optimal level, you're overflowing with energy, so that when it comes the time where your kids are home from school, or you're in the company with your children, you do have the reserves, you do have the energy it's like a bank of energy that you have to utilize when you need it. And then from that place, you will be able to hold the space. You'll be able to hold space for them, where you can allow them to be just as they are, hold a sense of compassion, not jump in with advice, and just be able to listen, actively listen to where they're at, and help them have their needs met. That's essentially what this is all about. We all have needs. We all have physical needs, emotional needs, spiritual needs, social needs, And so when our needs are met, then we're happier, we're more cooperative, we feel more connected to ourselves, to each other, and to the world. We're less in that protective state, we're more in that connective state. So when you're holding space, it's your connection to the physical sensations in your body will help you stay with yourself and help you process those sensations in the moment as something's happening with your child. So let's just say your child is refusing to help you with a certain thing, a certain task in the home, and you've asked them 10 times. How can you bring your attention to your body and notice the sensations in the body? You know, perhaps you're using something like opening the space for that sensation to spread through the body and diffuse, or perhaps you're just putting your direct attention on it and saying it's okay for that sensation to be there. I'm with you, I love you, I see you. You're talking directly to that sensation as you are holding the space for your child who's refusing to do the thing that you've asked. So that will avoid those, you know, getting angry and yelling at your kids, and you'll be able to then find the deeper reason as to why they're not doing the thing that you've asked them to do 10 times. So holding space for self and holding space for others is really such self-mastery to be able to hold space for yourself as you hold space for others. So this is where you're doing it simultaneously. So you can imagine those big arms that you had around the person that your child that you're holding space for, but imagine that the big, compassionate, non-judgmental arms are around both you and your child. And from that safe space, from that compassionate place, then you can allow both the sensations in your body and the thoughts in your mind be here, using the KI techniques as you hold the space, that safe space for your child to express themselves as they need to. So we're really moving away from making your child be something different or to act in a different way. We're moving away from manipulating how they're expressing their emotions and, you know, and their thoughts. And as long as they're safe, and I guess boundaries, guidelines, loving limits, like a list of loving limits for your family home that is co-written by the whole family, that can support that prerequisite to then, so they have some foundation, they know what's safe in the home. So for example, it's not safe to go and push your sister over when you're angry, or it's not safe to break a glass door when you're angry, but it is safe to go outside and hit the ground with your fists or yell and scream. So that's a safe, you know, that's a safe response. So just a reminder that the more work that you do, the calmer you will feel, the more self-regulated you will be. So then you can provide the space for your children to express themselves just as they are. So I invite you to try deep, active and reflective listening. So when your child is talking about something perhaps that's happened at school and they're not happy about friendships, maybe one of their friends has decided that they don't want to be best friends with them anymore. What you really want to move into is, rather than trying to find a solution and give advice, we want to use reflective statements like, I hear that you're upset because your friend has told you that you're not friends anymore. You could empathize with them and say something like, if I was in your position, I would be so sad. So the more that you go with their emotion and go towards their experience, the more they are going to feel received, loved, heard, acknowledged. And that brings a sense of connection and the start of the repair and healing for their own experience. So the more that you kind of butt heads of, like, you know, the kids saying, this was so bad because my friend my friend doesn't want to be friends with me. And the more that we're like, well, let's just look on the bright side, and I'm sure there's lots of other people who want to be your friends. While we want to say that, and while that's a logical answer, yes, and it's a true answer, there's probably a heap of other people, and probably there's a better friendship just around the corner. That's not meeting this child exactly where they are. So we want to get behind them. We want to be with them. We want to be beside them and help them know that it's okay that they're sad about this. We don't want to rush this process. We don't want to sever this process. This process is the processing where their sadness can be here, and it's okay for that to be here. If we stop and try to interject this experience, then this sadness can get lodged and stuck in the body, and then it affects the nervous system and our future thinking, their future thinking. So we really want to create lots of space and offer responses like, tell me more, tell me all about it. Maybe it looks like a cuddle on the couch, or maybe it's just giving your child that extra time and attention. Maybe it's doing something that you both like doing together as you're talking, or perhaps it's going out on a special date, or doing something special together where you're having that connection, and perhaps there's less emphasis on face-to-face like eye contact, and more, you're doing something together as you're talking, so it's less intrusive. So deep active listening, really, really, it involves you listening without listening to your own dialogue. And at the same time, to be able to hold space for yourself while you're listening to somebody else, it might include noticing the thoughts that are running through your mind and allowing them to be here as you are listening to the person. So it does require practice to just simply listen to what's being said to you from your child, because we are probably jumping ahead trying to find a solution, fix the problem for them. But in that, we're actually moving away from them. We're disconnecting from them and where they're at. We really want to stay with them and get underneath them, get behind them, and see how we can support them. So you can ask a question like, how can I support you? Or what do you need? Or what would help in this situation? Rather than you top downing and trying to fix it for them, how can we create the space for them to find their own resolutions and find their own clarity and own insights? Now that will help them to connect to their own inner resourcefulness, their own sense of problem solving, and be able to think innovatively and creatively to find solutions to their own problems. Otherwise, we're setting up this, I need my parent to fix this problem for me. I don't know what to do. There's this lack of confidence building about decision making. So we really want to get behind our kids so they can make clear, tailored decisions on the problems that they're faced with. So one important thing to know is that humans need a secure attachment or connection with their caregivers. There are other animals in the world that don't need a parent in order for a baby to survive. But the fact is that we as human beings, we need connection. From a primal perspective, they're built to have and to always have a connection with their caregivers in order to survive. So when we bring in something like a behaviour system that's built on punishments and rewards, we are interrupting their own connection to themselves in order for them to continue to have a secure attachment with us as a form of survival. So behaviorism is really founded upon Skinner's work, and interestingly, and I have a book that I recommend reading. It's called Punished by Rewards by Alfie Kohn, and Alfie Kohn in general is worth researching his work. But interestingly, Skinner, who is his work is really the foundation of behaviorism, had a traumatic relationship with his mother, and so he didn't have a strong sense of self. So behaviorism is built on which is having this system in our family unit or even at school that's built on that doesn't really include a sense of self. So our sense of self is our preferences, it's our needs, it's our emotions and thoughts, it's our own uniqueness, it's our own intrinsic motivation, it's our creativity, it's our gifts. It's what makes ourselves our unique expression. And when we create something like, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen, or if you don't do this, I'll take that away, what we're doing is we're interrupting our children's connection to their sense of self. Now, for me, as an example, I had depression for 22 years, and I had both a strong negative sense of self, and I also had a disconnection to myself. And I had lots of issues with that. I didn't know how to make my own decisions without my mum. I didn't trust my own instincts. I didn't believe that my emotions were right. I didn't trust my body in the way that it was crying all the time. I was very confused, very lost, and that had a direct impact on my relationships, and to be able to have safe boundaries and stand up for myself and voice my opinions, which also had an effect on how much joy and pleasure I experienced in my life. So life was pretty doomsday. It was not fun. I woke up with a sense of dread every morning. Being alive was very difficult. So once I learnt the Killer Bee inquiries, what happened as a result was I started to build a connection to myself. And first and foremost, that was connection to my body. And so once I started to connect to my body, I started to connect to pleasure and satisfaction and a sense of self-fulfillment from within. And from that place, then I developed a sense of confidence and a stronger sense of self. I then began to know who I was. I began to value my own opinions. I realized I could verbalize and have my own needs met when I said what I needed or asked for what I needed. Had my relationships change in a more healthier way. I got to have my needs met within relationships. And then the world looks really good after that. So beyond that, so when you have that sense of safety and deep sense of satisfaction through connection, then that being alive is exciting. It feels really good. It's something that I really enjoy now, being alive, which is a stark contrast to what it was like before. So let's just talk about behaviors that you'll have at home. So it could be, like a child refusing to do something that they don't want to do, or maybe it's not cooperating. So perhaps you've set up some guidelines around phone use and they're going behind your back. Maybe they're lying about their phone usage. And we generally tend to, like the general kind of rule of thumb to manage behaviour is to use a consequence or a reward. While that reduces sense of choice and autonomy and agency, it's also setting up a people-pleasing pattern or perhaps inauthentic relationships. So you might find that children are lying to you because they don't want to get in trouble. And so that sense of trust within the relationship has gone. Whereas if you're not reprimanding the behaviour, but you're actually looking behind the behaviour to see what the need is behind the behaviour, knowing that there's always a need, there's always a reason behind the behaviour, and it's generally a need that's not been met. When you meet the need, then you'll find that your child is more connected to themselves, they're more connected to you, they feel safer with themselves, they feel safer within you, and then you'll find that cooperation will be much more prevalent in your life and in your family home, which will reduce arguments and you'll have better relationships with your child, and those behaviours that you don't necessarily want will reduce because there's no need for those behaviours. So there's a difference between punitive consequences and natural consequences. So rather than saying, you know, if you don't do this, then I'll take that away, or if you don't do this, then you're going to get that, like being a consequence. That's an example of a punitive consequence. You can use a natural consequence. So you can start to explain why we have this rule in place, why we have this guideline in place, why we have this loving limit in place. So let's just say your child is not putting her shoes on to go to school. Rather than saying, if you don't put your shoes on right now, you won't get, I'll have to take that toy away. You could say something like, if you don't put your shoes on, then your teacher will be wondering why you're late to school. So that's a natural consequence. Or here's another one. If you don't put your jumper on, then you're going to get cold outside. So that's an example of a natural consequence. Or if you don't put your phone away, then you won't be able to concentrate at school tomorrow. So, you know, if one of your children is not putting their phone away to go to sleep at night. So see the difference between a punitive consequence and a natural consequence. So it's helping your child to take ownership of the situation themselves, so they can have choice. They can choose to not put their jumper on, or they can choose to keep using their phone, or they can choose to be late for school. But they're starting to take responsibility for their own actions, and then they have that choice. Well, it's not from a like I'm right, you're wrong situation. It's a, well, you know, here's the situation. What would you like to do? And underneath that, any other behaviour, if they continue with the behaviour, there will be a need. So you can ask one of three things. You can ask, have you got thoughts coming up? Have you got feelings coming up? Or do you need something? So any type of behaviour that is continuing without any kind of cooperation or acknowledgement of the guidelines that you have set together as a family, then you can ask those three questions, like one of them, to start with one. Do you have thoughts coming up? You've got feelings coming up? Is there a need? And like, I'm always amazed at how much there's always a need. There's always thoughts and feelings there. They're either worried about something happening at school, or they're upset that they missed out on something, or there are thoughts and feelings involved, and there is a need that's not being met. So it's our job, when we are emotionally available, then we can support our children to have their needs met. And when their needs are met, then they're more connected, more cooperative, and more connected within the family unit as a part of the community, as a part of the family unit. So one final thing that can be helpful is play. If there's no cooperation, if the behaviours continue, if you feel like you've met the need, or if you've tried to meet the need but you just haven't gotten anywhere, how can you infuse play? So children are great with play. They love playing, and it gets them back into that place of curiosity, connection, back into that rest, digest, nervous system state. And they're going to be more cooperative and more open for expression and communication through play. So is there a way that you can bring in a sense of humour, or is there a way that you can role play or bring a game in, or just make it lighthearted, make it fun? That can shift the energy, the feeling of the home, really, and your connection. So you can find that common ground again, and then you can be on the same team, and you're not loggerhead, you're not up against each other. So I hope that's all been very helpful. So really, essentially, this is about both you and your child being on the same team. It's being you're working together, you're side by side. This is not power over, where you need to control them. This is really allowing yourself to do all of the work. So you've processed your emotions and thoughts and trauma. So then you're emotionally available to hold the space so they can learn how to navigate their own thoughts and emotions, and you can help their needs be met. And then you'll find that their behaviors will start to fall away or reduce because their needs are met. So any types of unhelpful behaviors that you're seeing that you don't really want, there will always be there'll always be a need behind that behavior. So start to tune in, lean in. If you see a behavior, it means that they're out of balance. So our children are either in balance or out of balance. They're either in a connective state or a protective state. So when they are producing some kind of behavior that you don't want, they're most likely out of balance. And that's essentially our children, and our natural way for our children is to love learning, is to cooperate, is to help, is to be supportive of themselves and others, is to care for themselves and others. That's our human nature. So when we're out of balance, when our children are out of balance, then they're demonstrating a certain behavior. So it's like, how can we support our children to return back to a sense of balance? And that will be through meeting their needs. And in order to be able to offer that support for our children to get back into balance, then we need to process our own stuff so we are clear, we're available, we're emotionally available to hold that space for our children. So I hope you found that helpful. I'll leave some links for you, and we'll see you in the next video.